perils of this work from home for all of us now.
Yeah, it sometimes doesn't work.
Yes, it doesn't work. And I'm learning how to do all this Insta Live and changing my life around. So has it been very different for you as well, work from home?
Yes, very much. Renuka, as design is very much a sort of team activity.
Yeah.
And, the best ideas come when you're standing around a model or discussing a set of sketches on a wall.
Yeah.
And though, we are using a lot of technology, digital technology, it doesn't replace the sort of being in the design studio.
Correct.
So, for, that human contact in design is so important. And
sometimes those fine, lines on a model that you actually see and define together, I mean, that must really be the missing part of it, right?
That is actually the missing part. So while we are able to discuss sort of, larger things like proportion and all of that, the finer details that you develop in a clay model, we are totally missing. And also the sort of the group dynamic. You will know that, and anyone who works in an office, we miss that. There is a lot of technology, like I just said, but it doesn't replace the sort of personal contact.
Absolutely. But I guess we're all getting used to this new normal that is for us. And I think that is going to continue, unfortunately, for a long while. But we decided to have this chat with you today because there are just so many budding young automotive designers that always write into us, want to know how they get into this field, how they get into this career. And I thought, who better than you? And I'm going to kick this off with a little story about you that I think a lot of people really don't know.
God.
But I believe this was destined for you from when you were born. Because when you were born, and I've done a little digging, I'm a good journalist, yeah? So when you were born, your dad saw these amazingly long fingers of yours and decided to call you Pablo Picasso because he thought, you'd be in this artistic field. So is that true?
Yeah, in Bengalis, we always have this second name, and they're usually the most weird and wonderful names.
Yeah.
So yes, apparently when I was born, the fingers were long like an artist, and probably one of the only artists he knew was Pablo Picasso. Yeah. So that is my sort of nickname.
Pet name till today.
Yeah. In fact, a lot of friends, all my family knows me as that.
But your dad says that he was very upset because those fingers got shorter as you grew older, and he was really worried,
There you go.
Since this is about a career, tell us, I believe your parents were really worried when you decided to give up your opportunity at an admission at a US university and actually take up NID and go into design. So when was that moment for you when you knew, I believe all your school books were full of car sketches always?
Yeah, you have, in fact, done your research. That's great.
Yeah.
Growing up in the 70s and 80s in India, of course, we didn't see so many cars. And you never thought it was a profession in the first place. In fact, design as a profession itself, as a field, not car design, just design in general, was limited maybe to fashion and textile design at that point.
Yeah.
And the other field closest to it was, of course, architecture.
Correct.
So that's something I would have studied had I gone to the US. But, just before finishing school, I actually came to know about design and car design. And, since that would have been maybe in the 9th grade. Okay. And I never gave up that dream, actually.
Yeah.
Then I found out more, and this is all obviously pre-internet, so you have to find out by going to the library or whatever other means you had. So found out about the NID in Ahmedabad. That was the only sort of design school at that point at the undergrad level. Okay. And I made going to the US a backup to NID because NID would take only. In my year, they took 25 students from the whole country. So it was very, very competitive. I'm sure it's still that now, and so are other schools. But I needed a backup, and the US plan was a backup. And of course, when I got the brown envelope from NID, with the acceptance letter, there was no looking back. I said sorry to all the US colleges. And I moved to Ahmedabad after.
But your parents weren't really happy with this career choice when you began it, I believe.
I think they were worried because they didn't know much about design at all. In fact, when I said I want to study product design or industrial design, my dad thought it would be piping for factories and all of that kind of stuff. So they knew that, or they knew the sort of khadi jhola wearing artist. uh, who couldn't earn a
Yeah.
living, you know.
Yeah.
And both were untrue, because design is actually
Yeah.
something completely different. It's between this art and science, as I say always.
So when
And
was it that your parents actually felt like, yes, it was the right choice?
yeah, I think close to probably when I graduated. You know,
Okay.
they understood more. They came to the college, of course, in Ahmedabad, this beautiful campus. They saw the work that we're doing. See, I think ignorance is a larger part of the problem. But
Okay.
now, of course, people are much more aware of design in every
That's
field.
right. Yeah.
But yeah, you have to, go back to the 90s and see their frame of mind, where everyone in my year at
Yeah.
school either went to America or went on to study medicine or engineering. In fact, only
Correct.
one classmate studied architecture. She's the only one. So
Hmm.
there was no real, discussion around design at all. So I think, yeah, they were worried
Different
about
times. Would you
very
still
different.
recommend, so since we're talking to these young people who want a career, would you still recommend something like NID over going to a course abroad? Or what is the right step? What is the right education for someone who wants to pursue this as a career?
Yeah, I think, Renuka, to do a solid grounding in design is very important, and I think there's few better colleges than NID globally. Of
Okay.
course, now there are many others. There's the IITs, then there are other private colleges as well. I feel doing a bachelor's in India is probably the right first step.
Okay.
you know and then, of course, do a master's abroad is almost something you'd have to do.
Yeah.
I did a master's as well. I think that kind of sequence is what I would recommend, that stay in India to do the bachelor's.
Yeah.
It opens your eyes up to India, first of all. I mean, for me to move from South Bombay to Ahmedabad itself was a learning.
Okay.
And then, we had exposure in rural villages. We had, technically complex projects. We had many. It was a very well-rounded education. So it
Yeah.
makes you a good designer first. I think to be
All
a
right.
good car designer, you have to be a designer first. And I always say that.
And tell me something, while you're studying, do you recommend that they do a lot of internships and do them in local firms? Because a lot of people have this passion to go abroad and they see fancy cars and they want to design cars like that. But do you
Yeah.
recommend that they do it here?
Yeah, Renuka, I actually, in our time, it was a 5-year course, the
Yeah.
bachelor's. And I did an internship in every summer.
Okay.
So I went once to Elephant Design in Pune. I did an internship in Tata Motors. It was called Telco in those days. Little did I know I'd end up there eventually.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think those internships were very important, because it puts
Okay.
you into a professional context.
Correct.
And I think there's no more complex professional context than India itself. We are dealing with such a range of socio-economic scenarios,
Yeah. Yeah.
that when you design something in and for India, it already has a kind of complexity which you won't find anywhere else.
Yeah.
But of course, by all means, if it's a 4-year course, one of the internships can be abroad. If you do get the chance, you should take it.
Yeah. So we have a lot of questions coming in, and I just want to tell these viewers that I'm taking a note of these questions, and I will be asking them to Pratap later on in this conversation. But we're still learning a lot about him while we go. So Pratap, tell us about your journey. So when you finished this course at NID, then where did you go from there? How did you make this journey from NID to Tata Motors? And how long was it to actually designing a car? Because a lot of the youngsters these days want instant gratification.
Yeah.
They think you'll get in there and as an automotive journalist, you'll drive a car straight away or you'll design a car straight away. So talk about this journey.
So yes, a big part of this journey, or two massive words are, one is patience and the other one is hard work. It's actually 3 words, but hard work and patience are both, you need that in spades. The journey, of course, when I graduated from NID, I wanted to get into Tata Motors, and through a series of things, it didn't happen. And then eventually I got an opportunity to go to Piaggio. They had a small liaison office in Delhi. So I got a call from there saying that, we want to do a product for India. Would you be interested in doing a 6-month stint in Pontedera, which is near Pisa in Italy, at their headquarters, to design this product that they wanted to bring. Of course, I jumped at the opportunity. I reached there on a Sunday afternoon. Everything was shut. If you know anything about Italy, Sunday afternoon is the worst time to come to
Siesta
Italy.
time. Yeah.
Yeah. So everything was closed. I didn't speak a word of Italian, but that's the kind of opportunity you take, and you should. Okay. At a younger age, you have nothing to lose. You have absolutely nothing to lose, and so the next morning I went in and they said, "Look, here's the product we want to do for India." It was an old Lambretta, and I looked at it and said, "Look, if you guys do this, you're not going to survive in India. Forget about getting in and flourishing." And then slowly the product plan changed. They launched the Vespa. So that's how you get into the company. And I took this chance. And in the 6 months, I think I proved myself. And while I was sort of waiting to go back to the Indian office, they made me an offer saying that, would you like to stay on in the European studio and design all our, just become part of the design team. And I did that. So I did, I worked on Vespas, I worked on Gileras, I worked on, they had some Moto Guzzi line at that point. There was talk of Derby, that was another brand from Spain. So you got a chance to do many, many things, right? From 50cc scooters to, 250cc cruisers. And amazing learning, But had I not taken that chance, had I not got onto that Alitalia flight 777 from Bombay to Milan, I wouldn't be sitting here today. So I owe a huge debt of gratitude to Piaggio, but also, yes, like I said, take that chance.
So from Piaggio, where did you progress then? And what was your career path to Tata Motors today?
Now, Renuka, when I studied in NIT, we didn't have a specialization in transportation design or vehicle design. So I studied product design and I wanted to actually do car design. The best place on the planet is and was Royal College of Art in London. So I applied there. I got in. I applied for an INLAC scholarship, which I also got. And, it was luck. I went across to the RCA. When I graduated, the job scenario was pretty desperate. But I got a offer from Mitsubishi in Japan, one of the smaller design studios. I went across there. I met someone called Olivier Boulet. Because that was, they were together with Daimler Chrysler at that point.
Yeah.
And then when they split, Olivier Boulet said, would you like to join Mercedes? Would you like me to join me in Mercedes in Yokohama?
Yeah.
So again, I took that chance, So, Italy, then London, then going to Japan, take the chance. I always tell the younger guys, be ambitious, be hardworking, but don't be afraid of taking the leap.
Yeah.
I didn't know, if I was going to get a job when I entered RCA or what's going to happen, but you just do it to the best of your ability. And then, of course, things happened. And even after RCA, actually, I tried to get into Tata Motors. Again, it didn't happen. So it was sort of third or fourth time lucky,
So keep at it is the mantra. Don't ever give up.
Yeah? You can't give up. You can't give up. And I had a very, to be fair, I had an extremely comfortable life in Piaggio in Italy.
Okay.
And, I could have just gone with the flow and just been there, but no, you have to get to what you want to aspire to.
So what was it about Tata Motors that made you want to be there?
See, a couple of things. I think when you choose a company to work for, there are some personal values that have to resonate with whatever organization you're in. Otherwise, you won't last very long.
Yeah.
And I think there's no better group from an ethical standpoint than the Tata Group itself. Then Tata Motors was always doing new things. The Indica came out in 97, 98. They had done the Sierra, the Safari before that. So as an Indian company, I just felt it was so pioneering, and so I saw a huge opportunity there,
Correct.
So opportunity on one hand, and the second hand was on the other hand was this sort of synergy in an ethical value. For me, it's very important that, and it should be for everyone, that choose the company carefully that you go to.
That
eventually.
honestly shows in your design as well, Pratap, and we'll come back to that a bit with your Sierra, etc. But I remember in conversation with you once, you telling me that, for the first few months, all you did was design wheel caps and mirrors. And
Oh
that's
God,
what the
yeah.
journey is all about. It's
Oh
about
God.
just doing very basic stuff, and it's a long, enduring path to actually from there to designing a car. So would
Yeah.
you tell someone like approximately how long they would expect to,
You
design
know,
a car in?
yeah, I would, of course, depends on your talent.
Yeah.
But, you will obviously, when you are fresh out of school and into a design studio, you usually start at the bottom of the pile,
Yeah.
and you work your way through that. But there's a lot of learning in that. To put a wheel cap into production taught me a lot of things. There's so
Yeah.
many considerations, of heat, material, keeping it clean, fixing it onto the wheel. I mean, there are hundreds of things you learn which you don't even realize. Same with a mirror. There's legislation. If it hits a person, how many lanes can you see? So I learned a lot through these sort of smaller projects, door handles.
Yeah.
I did a lot of that.
I believe the NID days were also very, very tough. You used to use immersion heaters to boil eggs and things like that because it's not that easy. Yeah. See,
Yeah,
I've
yeah,
done
yeah.
a lot of research on you,
You have done a lot of research. Yeah,
No,
yeah.
but
Those were the
no, but
days. Yeah.
the study part of it was tough as well. And I'm just pulling your leg on that one. But for the students that want to know, a lot of them are asking, is it product design? Is it industrial design? What are the lines that you recommend? And then once you do that, in an automobile manufacturer studio, what are the kind of jobs that you would
Yeah.
expect? Or what is the progression? How do you get into a studio, and what's the path to that?
Yeah, fantastic. So, like I said, I would always recommend doing a bachelor's first and then a master's in design. A bachelor's teaches you to be a designer in the first place, and then the master's actually hones your design skill in whatever area you choose to specialize in. In our case, let's say auto.
Yeah.
Now, when you get into a company, in an OEM studio, you can expect to work in interior design of the car or exterior design. Usually, these are two separate teams.
Okay.
If you're very good at digital modeling, for example, you can get into the digital modeling side. Not everyone has to and should be a car designer per se. There are many disciplines within automotive design.
And sorry, I'm just going to interrupt you there because a lot of people think that this is all about art and being able to sketch the form, but there's a lot of math, science, physics that goes into it at the back. So you have to have a strong science base as well to be in this field, right?
Yeah, which is why I think, the bachelor's of design comes in, where you learn about materials, you learn about processes. A car, Renuka, has more materials and processes than probably any product that you use on a daily basis. If you think about it, there's probably every type of plastic, every type of fabric, every type of, metal, be it steel, be it aluminium, be it magnesium, be it alloys. I mean, you look at just a alloy wheel of a car, of any car. That itself is a material and process sort of manual, So having a curious mind is important. A lot of people say, oh, Pratap, you aren't an engineer. How do you design cars? I don't think you need to be. You need to understand all the processes so that when you're speaking to your engineering colleagues, you speak to them in their language. If someone says, oh, sheet metal stamping or vacuum forming or injection molding, you have to know that language, you have to know that process, you have to know the constraints around that.
Yeah.
So that's what I think a solid bachelor's degree in design does.
And is because nowadays so much of it is done on a computer, right? Before, I mean, it was all hand, there were sketches and you had drawing boards, etc. But now a lot of it is computer generated. So is that a part of the process and the course, and do the design courses these days incorporate that, or is that something that you have to take separately?
Yeah, Renuka, I must say software has got a lot better than in our time. In our time, it was very, very complex, very expensive. Today, you can have an iPad and run a software to basic model a car, on a software like Blender. So a lot of students I see coming out of design schools today, they are extremely good at, sort of digital modeling as well. But there is a difference to go. There's a concept modeling and there's production. There's modeling for production. That is a really very, very specialized sort of field, and it needs that kind of mindset where you're doing only that, the surfacing of a car. Because based on that surface, actually the tools are cut, the molds, the tools. So that's your final deliverable to the rest of the company. So you get the highlights wrong on that surface, the steel gets cut in a wrong way, and you get an ugly car, or you get whatever problems you get. So I won't recommend a pure designer to get into that depth. But yes, digital modeling is a extra arsenal in your toolkit, and if you're good at it, you should do it. But don't let it overpower your creativity. See, a lot of people think software designs the car.
Yeah.
It's still the mind which designs the car.
Okay.
So don't let the software.
That's an interesting one.
No, it's like Renuka is, if you use Word or Excel, if you use Word to write an article, it's not Word which is writing the article.
Correct.
Right? It's you which is writing the article using
Word.
Right.
Yeah.
So
that's an amazing analogy, and I think that makes it really, really clear to a lot of the students, and a lot of the people who think the process has become simpler because of technology. It hasn't. It's actually the mind that still creates and does a lot of that work. So where do you really draw your inspiration from, Pratap? And according to you, what is the golden era of design?
So I draw my inspiration from many things. Anyone who follows me on Instagram will see it's food, it's aeroplanes, architecture, not necessarily in that order, and by observation. I think
coffee shops in Korea as well, I believe.
Coffee shops, I think observing people is very important. What they're wearing, what they're eating, what their choices are. That somewhere in your subconscious actually plays when you're designing a car. You can feel the trends emerging. And this is very important to watch people very actively, watch society, watch culture, what's driving taste. So be a very keen observer as a designer. This is very important. But my own inspiration, yes, can come from anything. But I particularly like, aircraft, beautiful product design, architecture, like I said, and, fashion, sneakers, trainers. These are all, in sneaker design is just a universe of its own,
Yeah. And you do give a lot of tips to youngsters who are getting into this field, and ask them to practice their, the way they draw their lines. So is that something you'd like to talk about as well? What can they do to actually hone their skills?
Yeah, to honing skills, the only way, Renuka, is a lot of practice. There's no way around it. And, when people say design is a visual language, and this is very true. If you are a junior designer, for example, and, someone in the management has to choose your design, he or she will do that on the basis of a drawing you put on a wall, by the way. You won't even be in the room to present. Okay. So the design that you put on the wall will have to do the talking. Okay. And have to do the selling. And so therefore your drawing skills are actually primary skill. Again, you look at any profession, there's always a primary skill you must have. Yeah. If you're a chef and you don't like food, or you don't have a taste palette, you can't be a chef. There's that absolute basic you must have, and drawing is one of those tools to communicate, as a designer.
Also, design is a lot about balance between form, function, proportion. So, you can always design something that looks really sexy, but it has to have great proportions. Yeah. It also has to have functionality. So how do you balance that out? And what are the key areas there that you recommend to students to think about?
So, proportion is actually, when we design cars, I always tell the designers, do it in this order, which I say PSD. So P is proportion, S is surface, D is details. So P is is your first read of a car. So it's probably 50, 60 meters away. Just by proportion, you know which car it is. Yeah. Then you walk closer to the car, you're 20, 25 meters away. You start seeing surface, shadows, highlights. And then you walk even closer and you see the details. Yeah. Right. So PSD. what lots of kids do nowadays is they jump straight into the details. They'll draw headlights, they'll draw the wheels, they'll draw lots of, they'll draw the
Yeah.
grill. But
Yeah.
they've forgotten that, you got to get the proportion right first.
Yeah.
And to understand proportion, you must understand the architecture of a car. You
Okay.
must understand where the engine is placed. Is it transverse? Is it longitudinal? Is it mid-engine? Is it rear engine? Because that changes the proportion of those three volumes.
Balance, proportion, everything.
Yeah,
and then it's a lot of work with the engineering as well, right?
Of course, of course. Renuka, we all car designers want the biggest wheels, the lowest cabin, the widest stance. So, which we do many a time in sort of show cars and concept cars, but reality is very different. You have crash, you have manufacturing, you have packaging, you have lots of things to consider, visibility, so to get this optimum balance between all of these things is really the job that me and my team do with the engineering guys. And you win some, you lose some.
Yeah.
And Ian Callum, the ex head of design at Jaguar, all of you know, he said something to me which is very, very important. He said, look, Pratap, he tells his designers to fight for 2 millimeters a day,
Wow.
of height or width or whatever.
Yeah.
He said, look, by the end of the week, you'll have a centimeter. By the end of the month, you'll have 4 centimeters. You'll have a couple of inches.
Amazing. Yeah.
So, this is something I really, appreciate of what he had said, that you've got to fight for the millimeters.
Yeah.
And then, your car is what you see. And, any amount of design or styling cannot actually hide a poorly proportioned car. If the wheels are too small or in the wrong place or the cabin to body ratio is wrong, you can put any amount of lines to try and hide it, but it won't do it. So styling doesn't work if design isn't solid.
Yeah, so that's really something very interesting. I think a lot of people have to talk, and I think the viewers are really, really enjoying this. They're saying, please say more of what you're saying. Just now we're learning so much. So I think they're enjoying this conversation. A lot of people want to know which is the most favorite car that you designed and why. They want to know who are the designers that inspired you. So maybe you could answer those.
So for me, of course, designing at Mercedes was a huge privilege, but they had some very, significant, rules as to what made a Mercedes-Benz. And of course, you learn from that discipline. Yeah. But in Tata Motors, I think, one of the first cars we got a chance to design from scratch was the Tiago. When we designed it, it was called the Zika.
Yeah.
And I think that little car really changed the fortune of the company and the way design was looked inside and outside the company.
Absolutely.
It really made people notice us. And I think the Tiago will live on, as one of those real turning points for me and the company.
Okay. And who are the designers that inspired you?
Yeah, I mean, in the past, of course, lots of great designers, Flaminio Bertoni, who did the DS, then Alec Isigonis with the Mini. Why? Because he understood packaging. He did a 4-seat car in 10 feet. He was the first one to actually make the engine or layout, have the engine layout transverse to the direction of cars. Otherwise, they were always, longitudinal. Bruno Sacco in Mercedes, Chris Bangle in BMW. And of course, in the contemporaries, I think, Jerry McGovern and Massimo in Land Rover, Julian in Jaguar, he's an incredible designer. I think Peter Schreier, he's always been an absolute role model for me, because it's very recent. What he did at Kia in 10 years, I think Renuka, very few people have been able to do. Flavio Manzoni in Ferrari, very difficult cars to design. People think they're easy. They're probably some of the most difficult cars to design. And of course, Giorgetto Giugiaro. You can't have a conversation about car design without, mentioning someone like
Giugiaro. Well, okay. So now I'm going to really focus on the questions because I haven't been reading them all. A lot of people waiting to ask you a lot of questions. Please remember that this conversation is about automotive design, and that's the focus of the questions we'll be answering with Pratap today. So if I don't take any other questions, don't get mad. We're talking about automotive design. let's hit it. A lot of you have posted questions. I may not have noticed them. So if you have another question, just post it right now and I'll be looking at them at this moment. For a beginner, what should he start with? How do you get an internship in Tata Motors? That's what's being asked a lot.
I think, we of course get a lot of portfolios, Renuka, as you can imagine. But, so you have to have a very strong portfolio. The way you think, the way you ideate, I think that to me personally and my team, my senior team who does this recruitment, they really look at how people think. And what they bring to the table, even for those 2 to 6 months that we do. In fact, we do 6 months to 1 year internships. Because we feel that's the kind of time people need. So we are very unique in that sense. Our internships are very, very long compared to, this usual 8-week, 10-week internship. And I did that for a specific reason. I think 8 weeks is so short for someone to just get into the studio, understand what you're doing, start performing, So I thought 6 months and 1 year are the two lengths which suit us and the intern. But yeah, the qualifier is you got to be in a design college. You got to have a portfolio of a certain level because you're competing with 50, 60 other people. So we will only choose the best. I mean, there's no doubt about it.
So what does a youngster who's come out of college have to do to catch your eye? What would you be looking for in that portfolio that would say, hey, this stands out from the crowd. This is what I want.
So I would be looking for a bit of vision, Renuka. I think, we get fresh blood into the studio so that they can, they're not afraid of thinking out of the box. Sometimes we within companies or within organizations can always be lulled into doing the same old. I think when someone comes from the outside, if they show me or my team a vision of what Tata Motors can be in the next 10, 12, 15 years, tie it up with some societal trends, not just do, I don't know what, a lot of people do, open top sports cars and will we be that? Will the market really be that? I always say there's many gaps in the market, but there are not enough markets in that gap. So I want someone to come with some intelligence and a vision of what we should and can be, because that's what I went in to Tata Motors. We didn't talk about it, but Mr. Tata had very, very graciously agreed to meet me when I was banging at their door. And I went in with a vision of what Tata Motors can and should be. And after the meeting, again, in his classic style and grace, he said, look, I don't think I agreed with everything you said, but at least you said it and we would like you to work for us, So I think that's important, that bring something which I am not seeing, even if it's right or wrong, we can debate that, but at least have a conviction that, why you've done something.
So that portfolio ideally should match your vision for what's, if it matches something about what you're thinking about the future of Tata Motors, that's what's going to catch your eye.
Of course.
A lot of people are asking us also about softwares. What are the softwares that are recommended? What's the right software to be in? So this is a question that's popping up a lot.
So the best software is the one between your ears. I think that is software number one. But since we're talking about it, the second one is, of course, a pencil and a piece of paper, because it goes from here to your hand. And third, if you ask me, is of course Photoshop, or using now the iPad Pro is really brilliant. It's got a drawing software called Procreate, which is amazing. So if you have a chance, that could be a good software. But like I said, software doesn't fix bad thinking or poor thinking. And definitely doesn't fix a poor design.
A lot of people are asking, does the college they go to matter? So does it matter where you study? Do some colleges have preferences, or any design college is a good place to start?
I think, of course, some colleges have a reputation, because of the history that they have. But that alone won't get you a job in any studio, let alone ours. So yes, it may be a bit of a calling card in your CV, but ultimately what will matter is that portfolio. And
what are the colleges that you that have that reputation according to you, and that would stand out from the crowd?
So of course, Renuka, the NID is one of them. MIT in Pune, There's many others, but I think IIT has a very old reputed course. In fact, NID and IIT were the oldest courses actually in India. But what I've seen recently, the NID course is really fantastic in transportation, and MIT, DY Patil, and we actually support some of these courses as well with material or time or whatever it is. And abroad, of course, if anyone wants to go, Coventry University, Royal College of Art, Pforzheim in Germany, Umeå in Sweden, Art Center and CCS in the US.
That's amazing. So a lot of lists there. This is for students and young students who are studying and want to do this, but there are a lot of people that want to make a career switch.
Yeah.
Yes. And they think, okay, I can do this. What advice do you have for people like that? And say if someone studied commerce, been in that field, can they switch over to this career? What should they do? Where do they go? So people that want to make that career switch, because it's all about timing, isn't it?
Yeah, Renuka, I get that a lot, and it breaks my heart. This happens. People say, I'm in the 4th year of engineering now and I want to switch, or I'm already working and I'm an accountant. And that breaks my heart because, if someone really wanted to study automotive design, he or she should have got in ideally after school, after the 12th grade.
Yeah.
But if you're talented and I think, if you have that ability and bent of mind, post engineering is probably the latest I would go. If you've already started another career, I would recommend you to stick with that career and make the best of it. Don't switch careers if you've already started working. But if you're just kind of finishing engineering, you still have a good chance. But it depends a lot on your talent, because don't forget, when you graduate, your portfolio goes in with the kids who've been studying design for 4 to 6 years already.
Yeah.
So, in a year, in 18 months, you have to try and catch up to that, which I find, especially in auto, is extremely hard. So that's my only qualification. But if you work hard, if you're talented, if you get into a college to do the masters anyway, you could take a look at it. But be very, very careful. Renuka, I just wanted to, I don't want to put a dampener, but if you look at India itself, actually there are 2 or 3 car design studios at OEMs, car design. So Maruti, Mahindra and us. And I think between the 3 of us, we probably create 15 or 20 new jobs a year, if that.
Wow.
If that. Yeah. So, and you have over 150 people graduating in car design from India. So, be careful.
It's a very, very tough path.
It's a very tough path because, and again, through your program or through your Insta Live, I would like to say to other OEMs in India, that please, invest in design in India. Renault does it in a small way. I know Hyundai has something, but please do more.
Because we've got a lot of talent here, and I think a lot of people that want to be here but don't know how.
Yes, and you'll be surprised. So a lot of the I speak to so many of my colleagues in other OEMs, and I say, why aren't you all investing in design in India? And they say, oh, because we don't find the talent. And I said that, well, if you don't invest, how will you find the talent? So it's a chicken and egg, and they have to break it. So we have 10, 12 OEMs in India. And this is not because they're competition, I'm talking now beyond that. I'm saying, give Indian design and creativity a real chance. Otherwise, these kids going into these design colleges, spending a lot of money, come out and have no jobs,
Yeah. So, a lot of people asking us, are there any books you recommend that they read if they're in this field, they're studying this field? Are there any books that you would like to recommend?
There's one called H Point. Look at that because it really talks about, architecture of cars, engine placements, layouts, why cars look the way they look. It's all because of the architecture, the bone structure. So look at this book called the H Point. And of course, there are many others on techniques, but I like H Point because it's quite it gets into the basics of automotive architecture. So
when we're talking about bone structure and a flow, you have one yourself, the humanity line, which you like in all your cars to talk about.
Yeah.
So is that a part of like, should every designer have his own identity, his own stamp, something that he continues and follows through with, that sort of makes him unique?
I think more than the designer, the stamp that a designer should put down is how he or she reflects the brand that he's working for.
Yeah.
In some of the examples I took earlier, and Giugiaro is probably one of the biggest one. He of course has a style, but he's done everything from a Golf to a Fiat Punto to a Panda to a Maserati. So he's been able to, because you're not an artist. An artist has a style.
Okay.
Yeah. But a car designer is someone who best reflects the brand's attributes.
Correct. So adaptability is a big part of that as well.
Yeah, adaptability and also, like I said, deep understanding of the brand you're working for. What is it? What is the DNA? What does it stand for? Why do people like it? Why do people hate it? When I spoke about humanity and humanity line, it was something that I wanted to reflect of the Tata group. And you're seeing this in these troubled times. So that's why I don't do aggression, or we don't do aggression in our design. We do strength. If you talk about the Harrier or the Gravitas or the Nexon, they're strong looking cars. They're never aggressive, because that doesn't resonate with the brand, in my view.
Okay. And some people asking us, is there a different path they have to choose for exterior design and interior design? So, are there different subjects, different choices that they have to make? Also, people asking us, is science necessary in school to be able to get into a career in design?
I don't think it's necessary. In fact, many of the people I studied with didn't come from a science background. Like I said, curiosity is important. The science background in the sense helps where you're talking about materials and processes and technologies. But, that's not, it's not rocket science, Renuka. For a sheet of steel to be shaped, you can understand as a male, female, it stamps it under some pressure and heat, and it takes that shape. I think, those are, if you're curious enough, you can explain that to, an art student. Because you are not expected to do the calculations for it. That the engineers will do. How deep, how thin, how, strong, how, whatever, that the engineering team does.
Yeah.
But you must understand the processes. So I don't think necessarily science is a requirement.
And the difference between interior and exterior design?
Yeah, this usually happens, this choice usually happens to you in your education. And this is why I say do that bachelor's, because it gives you that 4 years of time to find what you want to do. Color and materials, another huge area. We get a lot of talent from textile design and fashion design in our color and materials team. The bachelor's, like I said, gives you that time to find your specialization. Through your projects, you'll realize, oh, I really like interiors, because I really like the complexity of ergonomics and materials and, reach and clearances. I like that. I'll go into interiors. So it gives you the chance to explore your option.
Yeah. A lot of people asking us, is design changing because now of electric cars and the way the space, the function, the form, the entire thing changes because of the electric cars. So how has that progression happened? Has it made you think differently as well?
Yeah, electric cars, definitely, Renuka. You're sitting on a massive slab called the battery, but it frees up space in other areas of the car. And definitely does influence. And aerodynamics, for example, has a huge role to play because EVs are all about range, and the anxiety. So aerodynamics in EVs are actually extremely, extremely important and does influence the shape. So if you look at the Jaguar I-Pace, for example, it's got this real nice cab forward sort of silhouette. Which we haven't done in the Nexon, because the Nexon is basically an electrified car. It's an IC engine car, which we remove the engine. But if a car is designed to be electric, you can definitely change the proportion, the silhouette.
And how long is that process? I mean, normally the process of design begins 3 or 4, almost 5 years sometimes before a car is actually launched.
That's right. We do 6 to 8 months of real research. What we call the pre-project research. who's buying it, what are the trends, blah, blah, blah. Then when the program actually kicks off, we within between 36 and 42 months is from sheet of paper to sheet of steel.
Yeah. Amazing. And how do you predict 4 years in advance what design is going to be and where it's going to be and what the people will want?
No, Renuka, actually we don't predict 4 years in advance. We predict 11 years in advance. Why do I say that? Because 4 years to when I start the project, the car comes out.
Yeah.
And then has to last in the market for 6 years or 7 years.
Correct.
So the whole project is actually 11 years.
Yeah.
That you are talking about. I mean,
exactly. So it's a lifetime as well.
Yeah, this device didn't exist 11 years ago. The iPhone only came 10 and a half years ago. Yeah. So you can see how much can happen in 11 years.
Absolutely. So, but this is a long lead process. It's a long time for car design. I mean, it's a very, like you said, it requires a lot of patience.
Patience, perseverance. To do a project for 4 years is not a joke.
Yeah.
4 years is a long time to be associated with one product.
Yeah.
Before getting it out. But of course, the satisfaction when it comes out and, it's bought and, journalists like you drive it and people like it or not or whatever it may be, that satisfaction is immense. Renuka, I do, every time I go to India, I try and visit one or two of our showrooms and I try and do a key handover ceremony.
Yeah.
To our customers. And at that point, I can't tell you, I can't describe the feeling that this person or this family could have bought any car in the world, let's say, or at least in that segment, but has chosen your car,
Yeah.
And it makes it all worthwhile. That moment is unbeatable. I can't describe it. So I work for that moment, actually.
It's been amazing chatting with you. I'm going to leave you with one last question because it's only popped up about 1 million times in this conversation. A lot of people wanting to know, so will you ever redesign a Safari? Are we going to see a new Safari? And that's a question a lot of people have been asking.
So let me just say this, we have 3 legendary brands in our portfolio. I say legendary, the 3 S's, the Sumo, Safari and Sierra. And, we've shown you what the Sierra can look like,
Yeah.
And, I'm sure when the time is right and when we really have something which we can honestly call the Safari, I'm sure you'll see something. But, I won't do a superficial job of something like that. Safari is a legend. And, these legends, in fact, we call them Legend Reborn, this series.
Yeah.
A legend deserves to be brought back, in a serious, proper way. And when we do, you all will be the first ones to know.
Great. A lot of people saying, sir, can you do a live sketch for us? Can we see you sketching? Do you have pen and paper there? And can you do that for us as a goodbye?
I don't have pen and paper, but of course, in your promo, you showed that.
Yeah, I do. I do have one in my promo, so you guys can see that. That's something we got Pratap to do just before we had this conversation. So,
in fact, you can show the longer version. You can show it.
I will do the entire version. I will share it on our social media as well.
Yeah.
So it's been really great talking to you, Pratap. Thanks so much for these insights. And I think, you are a real inspiration for all these youngsters out there wanting to be in automotive design.
Thank
you
so
for joining us.
Thank you, Renuka.